The Starfield Direct gave us fans over 40 minutes of new gameplay and information to pour through, and with that there are tons of secrets and lore details hidden underneath every single nook, every cranny, and every space rock in this footage. Eagle-eyed community members are still finding new secrets and picking apart the hidden details of the Starfield Direct by the hour. So today, I wanted to jump into 10 secrets you might not have noticed during the Starfield Direct footage. I hope you enjoy.
This is where we belong.
Starting at number 1, and this is something that's not a massive secret, but it's worth mentioning. We're going to kick it off a bit slow and then get into the more interesting ones as we continue. Aurora fish. It's a creature that is native to the aquatic planet where Neon staked its claim, is visible during the gameplay showcase. Aurora is a drug that's harvested from the fish. It's illegal in most of the settled systems, and it produces intense psychedelic effects that the player can experience for themselves or even partake in the manufacturing and selling. More interesting though is this larger creature that's shown later on, with a sign from the Xenofresh Corporation right beneath it. This is pure speculation, but I thought it would add an interesting ethical dilemma as to the harvesting of Aurora if this fish that we see is actually what the Aurora fish grows into later on if left unchecked. Notice the multiple pectoral fins, the dorsal fin, the angular mouth shape, as well as Aurora being made by Xenofresh Corporation, and these fish seemingly being displayed in a Xenofresh Corporation fish factory. Coincidence? I'll let you decide. Pure speculation, but if this is true, you might want to think twice before busting up the entirety of the Aurora operation, which could lead to more injured fishermen and citizens later on. Here's one that should get Mass Effect fans a bit interested. We do know that there's some influence that's bleeding into Starfield from the Mass Effect series, but at a certain point during the trailer, we get told to consider joining up with the Vanguard and obtaining our United Colony citizenship.
You ever think of joining up with the Vanguard? Help the United Colonies, even get your UC citizenship?
Now, there's actually two little details to pick apart here. First off, we are not playing as a citizen of any faction when we start the game. In traditional Bethesda game studio style, you can be who you want and play how you want, and this is further evident of that. How we've avoided being a citizen of any of the major factions in the world is still unknown. What role did we play before becoming a minor? The other detail, and small spoilers for the second Mass Effect game are coming, but at a certain shot we get a look at this really interesting statue that looks fairly reminiscent to the Mass Effect 2 Normandy Memorial statue you get to place during the Normandy Crash Site DLC. Did this unnamed ship see a similar fate, or is it just a significant milestone for the Vanguard? One thing's for sure, I love the small bits of lore and detail that help make this world feel lived in and alive, with details such as this. Speaking of Easter eggs, one of the first things I noticed during a shot where we rescue a bunch of humans who seemingly thought they were the only survivors.
You're human. We thought we were the only ones to leave Earth.
More on that in the second part of this series. We get to see a small clip of a garden area that the humans have used on their ship in order to sustain themselves and grow food. But there's one interesting plant that stood out among the rest, which looks very reminiscent to Nirnroot found in the Elder Scrolls, albeit a mutated form of some kind. Now, the effects of Nirnroot in Skyrim damage health, they damage stamina, they also provide invisibility and resistance to magic, so not too sure what benefits the colonists or these spacefarers are getting from growing this plant exactly. Maybe whatever mutation might have befallen it is where the added benefit comes from, but certainly at surface level, not the type of thing I'd want to eat. And inevitably, it's time to let the connected universe theories start thriving once again, as we get with every Bethesda game. Let's dive into a small detail that's easy to miss if you're not paying attention that actually impacts gameplay. Yes, there are several gameplay details that were not mentioned whatsoever during the Direct, but are visible within the gameplay showcase. Throughout multiple different sections of the gameplay, we see these small icons appearing in the compass on the bottom left. Now, we actually can tell what most of these symbols that appear do mean. Some are represented by a circle icon, others by a triangle, and what we could tell is that the circular symbols are actually environmental. This will be things like temperature or radiation. The triangle, however, are symbols that are particular to your character conditions that you're undergoing. Some look like broken bones, other look like droplets of water, so we could infer that there actually is a built-in survival system at launch for Starfield. It's also very possible, like how ships that we now know can be targeted their individual systems, such as engines or shields, we might have limb damage the same way that we see in the Fallout series. Having locational damage might explain why we see some level of reactivity from the enemies based on where they get hit, such as this melee combat where the enemy reaches for his head after being punched there, or several other sections where enemies get shot and they fall in the appropriate direction based on where the bullets might have hit them. We also know of multiple condition types that can affect your character, both infections as well as different conditions, such as I noticed too, there might be some others hidden in the gameplay, but there was coughing and there was soreness. Now, we don't know exactly the way that these statistics will affect your character, these conditions, what impact they will have, and I also didn't specifically notice diseases. Another tidbit of lore for you lore junkies. This one may be a bit more obvious, but I thought it was definitely cool enough to be worth mentioning here. And it was the nature of the Crimson Fleet's main base. During the montage of a bunch of different factions in the game, we get to learn that the Crimson Fleet's main HQ is actually built out of an old United Colonies space station, and you can see the remnants of the United Colonies logos and posters that the Crimson Fleet have written over with their graffiti, highlighting their absolute detest for the United Colonies. If you look at a shot outside the station, you could see bits of debris that's floating around in the space nearby, clear signs of some struggle that did happen during the takeover of this station. You could also notice on the monitors and displays inside that they highlight memory dump complete, indicating that the United Colonies was determined to make sure no secrets fell into the hands of the Crimson Fleet. At first glance, I thought perhaps this was a former prison that Crimson Fleet prisoners were able to riot and take over, but there isn't anything noticeably distinct to prove that theory. So it's very possible that this was actually a very important space station or structure for the United Colonies, which highlights the threat and the actual power that the Crimson Fleet do have. They're not just some small group in the galaxy to be feared, they're actually a formidable opponent. Many fans are still wondering about the possibility of implants or cybernetics, and in a futuristic world like Starfield, it only makes sense that in some way they should be possible. There's not necessarily any visual cues on the characters or NPCs that indicate cybernetics or implants are used, but what's interesting is during the character creation section, specifically when talking about backgrounds, the cyberneticist background highlights a few important key words: neuroamps, implants, and upgrades, and it goes further to mention the possibility of humans and machines as one. Now, none of the starting skills exactly correlate to these types of human enhancements, but they are confirmed to exist within the universe of Starfield. The question is whether or not we're able to obtain and utilize them. I guess if Bethesda wanted some lore reason why they're not used, it's strictly reserved for soldiers or they were banned after the colony wars, but that doesn't make sense why you wouldn't be able to find them on a place like Neon, so hoping that they're there. Starfield has been delayed for almost a year now, and the knowledge was that Bethesda is focused primarily during that duration for polish for Starfield, which is great news, but more than just polish happened during that time. You can take a look at the before and after of certain character models such as Sarah Morgan. With her in particular, she seems to have changed her eye color since the last time that we saw her, but looks distinctively better than she did previously. Locations such as Aquila have been vastly overhauled. It looks much more dense and lived in. There's additional NPCs moving around. There's a beggar sitting on the street that reaches out to the player as you walk by. And even the color palette seems to have shifted in order to really lean heavily into that space western vibe. New Atlantis has had a bit of a facelift as well. Entire buildings have changed since the first time we saw it. The most exciting things to me is that these are the changes that we just simply know about. It doesn't include all of the other upgrades that are going behind the scenes. We don't have a before and after to compare to, and that's not even mentioning improvements like the gunplay, which it really does seem as though Bethesda took some of the feedback into consideration and has made improvements accordingly, which that's awesome and gets me even more excited for Starfield. Areas like the New Vegas casinos were a bit of a fan favorite, and although I still think nobody really knows how Caravan works, those types of gambling and minigames are always appreciated as a fun distraction from everything else, from the shooting, the combat, and the exploration, and being able to partake in those activities makes the world feel like it has a bit more to do and it's a bit more realistic. Well, it might be possible in Starfield to gamble as well when we see some small shots coming from Red Mile, a brand new faction that was introduced for the first time. You can actually see some of the terminals say the word blackjack, meaning that humans absolutely are still playing those classic casino games. The question remains whether or not we can partake in them, and I would love to see if there was a unique type of card game or gambling betting game that is solely for Starfield, created for this universe, that we can interact with and play. That would be pretty cool. And lastly, here is a bit of a bonus for the real ones who stuck through this entire video, and arguably the most interesting on this list. Definitely saved the best for last. Is it possible that we've actually gotten our first glimpse at life beyond our own, the intelligent alien species we might encounter during our journey in Starfield? We know that the main mission of Starfield is to find life out in the galaxy, and putting together these alien devices are seemingly the key to unlocking that knowledge, where they might have gone and how we can find them. But during a bit of a flash scene, while most of it is nondescript or indiscernible, we do see this strangely humanoid or alien looking head that appears as part of the visions. If you take a close look, you could almost vaguely see the outline of a face, the eyes and the chin. Is this merely a trick of the light, or maybe we're looking too deep? Or alternatively, is it possible that these artifacts are the way that an alien intelligent species is trying to communicate with others throughout the settled systems? And this, absolutely similar to the beacons in the Mass Effect series, are our way of getting to understand and find them. I would even take it a step further. If you bounce between these two frames, it almost looks like the eye is opening up to me. But hey, again, let me know what you think about this one. We do know that some people hear voices when they get close and interact with these artifacts, so my money's on yeah. This is merely half of the hidden details that I've noticed, and there's plenty more interesting ones to highlight. So keep an eye out for part 2. Leave some of your own discoveries down in the comments section as well. And if you're looking for a mega deep dive into everything, there's actually a 4-hour video. It was a live stream that I did that I reposted to the channel, where I went through and tried to find everything I could right after the showcase. So watch that in chunks, all in one sitting. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I hope that you enjoy that if you are interested. And also, there's almost 2,500 people now subscribed to the channel, so if you're new here, check out some of the other videos. I don't want to be just the Starfield guy, as excited as I am for this game, so check out some of the other content. I'm going to be making more on games like Avowed, but other than that, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I hope to see you all next time. So long, everybody.